Welcome, everyone, to today's discussion on Zoom. Welcome also to all who join us at a later time by watching the recording. You are also part of this gathering. I'm Johanna, and I'm a volunteer with the Foundation for Inner Peace. The Foundation is the publisher of the scribe-authorized version of A Course in Miracles. If you want to learn more about A Course in Miracles, please visit www.acim.org. If you feel inspired to make a love offering, please visit acim.org, and at the top of the page, you will find the word donate. All donations support the work of the Foundation for Inner Peace. Each session, we will be delving into a discussion in the workbook Lessons in A Course in Miracles, led by a moderator team of volunteers for the Foundation. What does discussion mean? In our gatherings here, we welcome the Holy Spirit to join us. Through the Holy Spirit's presence, our meeting becomes a joining of equals to commune with the Holy Spirit's guidance to experience miracles together. Now, before we begin today's session, we will take a moment together to quiet and center our minds. And so, Sharon, it's your turn now.
Thank you, Johanna. I'm going to read something, and then we'll have a little bit of quiet time before we go into our lesson for today. This is from Chapter 30, Rules for Decision, paragraph 17. It needs but two who would have happiness this day to promise it to all the world. It needs but two to understand that they cannot decide alone to guarantee the joy they ask for will be wholly shared. For they have understood the basic law that makes decision powerful and gives it all effects that it will ever have. It needs but two. These two are joined before there can be a decision. Let this be the one reminder that you keep in mind, and you will have the day you want and give it to the world by having it yourself. Your judgment has been lifted from the world by your decision for a happy day. And as you have received, so must you give. Thank you for sharing that quiet time with me and with all of us here together as one, actually. So, Johanna, if you would bring up, I believe we're looking at lesson 70. And we are starting with, yes, lesson 70. My salvation comes from me. And I don't remember exactly which.
8.
8. Okay. I'll read that, and then we'll start the discussion. And Johanna, could you scroll down and let's see how many more paragraphs there are? Oh, so, okay. I'm going to read the whole thing, and then we'll discuss the whole thing, and the rest of it at any rate. And then maybe we'll have time to move on to the next lesson. Now we will try again to reach the light in you, which is where your salvation is. You cannot find it in the clouds that surround the light, and it is in them you have been looking for it. It is not there. It is past the clouds and in the light beyond. Remember that you will have to go through the clouds before you can reach the light. But remember also that you have never found anything in the cloud patterns you imagined that endured or that you wanted. Since all illusions of salvation have failed you, surely you do not want to remain in the clouds, looking vainly for idols there, when you could so easily walk into the light of real salvation. Try to pass the clouds by whatever means appeals to you. If it helps you, think of me holding your hand and leading you, and I assure you, this will be no idle fantasy. For the short and frequent practice periods today, remind yourself that your salvation comes from you, and nothing but your own thoughts can hamper your progress. You are free from all external interferences. You are in charge of your salvation. You are in charge of the salvation of the world. Say then, my salvation comes from me. Nothing outside of me can hold me back. Within me is the world's salvation and my own. So, does that bring up anything for anyone else? No. It's a beautiful, beautiful passage. I'm working on believing. Maggie.
Well, Sharon, I just loved that line that tickled you and made you laugh while you were reading it. I loved that you couldn't help but react to it because it's just such a beautiful sentiment. So that sentence, it's two sentences really. If it helps you, think of me holding your hand and leading you, and I assure you this will be no idle fantasy. It's so beautiful. It's so comforting and soothing. And I just thought I'd share that I did literally imagine this for years. So if anyone wonders, like, should I really imagine bodies and hands? And I did, and I found it so comforting.
Yeah.
And I even had a period of, I got that from Ken, at a point where I was going through the workbook with Ken Wapnick and his books, and I felt so connected with him and the way he talked about it. I really took that on. And then shortly after I had gone through it with his books, Ken passed away, and I felt so connected to him that then for a while I like to imagine Jesus on one side of me and Ken on the other. And I had both of their hands. And so that really, really was very effective for me for a long time. So I just thought I'd share.
I agree, that physical thing for me, when I need to connect, and which is, quite often during the day, if anything upsets me, I start, oh. And I have a couch like right here behind my right shoulder, and I snuggle up to Holy Spirit on the couch and say, you take care of this. So I think physical really works also. Bill.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thanks. I just wanted to kind of interject, if you will, what came into my mind as that. I also noticed your reaction to that with the holding of the hand. And before I felt it, and I loved it, and I love it. But what I'm interjecting is what comes into my mind, because it's like holding hands to start with, but really he's going to get right inside of me, and I'm going to witness how he's witnessing. That's him walking with me, in me, fully, totally. At first, we're just kind of like glad he's there. Some people are outside of us. But this is just him getting close until we finally let him come in and be in and allow us to witness him witnessing and reacting and acting in through us. That's the holding of the hand. It's not a fantasy. That's what's happening. It's not an idle fantasy to think that you're holding hands, but hey, okay, thank you. That's righteous.
And it's like seeing through the eyes of Christ.
Right. Yeah. Seeing the eyes of Christ see through you.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill, for sharing. Anyone else want to weigh in on any of that we just have been talking about? Maggie, or Megan.
Yeah, I was putting up the Christmas tree. It took me like 4 days, but I made these little hearts for my sister who's passed on, my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law's kept falling off the tree. And so eventually I had a long discussion with him, asking him why he wanted to be at the bottom of the tree. So I found it amusing and interesting and helpful in many ways, because he's not here to talk to. Like, but I kept getting this idea that he was with me. And so in the same way, I feel like not only is Jesus' hand with me, but that all the people that I love are with me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I get the feeling nobody that I loved that died really it has died. I feel like they're still here all the time. I love it.
Imagination.
Yeah.
You know, good.
Just they feel here. You know, I don't feel any separation. I feel like I can talk to my parents, or I feel like I can talk to my dead parents as easy as I can talk to Jesus and the Holy Spirit. You know, I just don't think there's such a thing as death.
They just don't talk back. You can talk to them, but they just
Well,
don't talk
sometimes,
back.
Hey, haven't you ever had them talk back and say something that you would not have said? I have.
I know some people have. I haven't been blessed with that. That is
Well,
some divine blessings.
And I'm not saying I have people speaking to me, but
there's only one time that ever happened. It was about 10, 15 years ago, and it called my name William, and it brought me right out of sleep and brought me right up. I knew, I don't know, nothing was there.
Yeah.
That was the only time that I ever got that kind of
I
divine.
know there are other people that have had that. There was a psychic in our area, a lady called Betty Bethards, and she was a very dyed-in-the-wool Baptist. And one night she got up to go to the bathroom, and walking down the hall, she said a spotlight shone down on her, and she was standing in and it freaked her out. But it was the beginning of her getting information, so who knows?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's their blessings, they're divine. It's like sometimes.
Megan.
I think as an artist, I have a really, really large, very vivid imagination. And so at times I can feel energy. And in that energy, I usually get an impression of, what is it? When you're near people and you get a familiar feeling, you can be in the same room with somebody, not talking to them. You're both reading books or something, and you feel this sort of, I feel calm energy. So I haven't had voices talk to me, although I do talk to myself in my head, and I'm pretty sure it's not me all the time, but I'm always telling myself, shut up. I need to pay attention to what I'm doing. I don't need to be doing this. So every once in a while I'll get some energy, or I'll have some things going on, like the ornament dropping, and I go, knock it off. I have no time for this stuff. And they're like, no, I need your attention, because you seem to be paying attention to me now. So since I have your attention, please pay attention to me. So I hope that is something.
Well, I think we always have two voices in our head, and we just have to pay attention to the one that's making us feel good, because that's the one we need to follow, not the other one. Marguerite.
I just thought it was so beautiful what you were sharing, Sharon, that how you can I guess interpret what you're saying is that it's all symbolic. And holding that hand first, it might feel like you need to make the picture of holding someone's hand, and I still use that also. Yet it's really about the willingness. If you're willing to hold his hand, you're actually just saying symbolically in the mind, like, I am willing to see this differently. And that's all spirit needs to clear the mind. So that was beautiful in your demonstration. I believe that they're still here. In other words, an ego can't say that. Well, it can say that, but it won't be happy about it. But but that's what I heard you say so clearly. And then that's how we demonstrate how symbolic everything is that we see, including what Jesus is saying in the book. It's all symbolic.
Yeah, I agree. Well, shall we go on to the next lesson? So now I'm going to ask, so we're going to go to lesson 71, Johanna? Okay, and now I would like to ask volunteers to read like we normally do, one read one paragraph and someone read the other one. Do I have any volunteers? Oh, Andrew, good. And I need one more to alternate. Bill, yay. Okay, Andrew, go ahead and start.
Only God's plan for salvation will work. You may not realize that the ego has set up a plan for salvation in opposition to God's. It is this plan in which you believe. Since it is the opposite of God's, you also believe that to accept God's plan in place of the ego's is to be damned. This sounds preposterous, of course. Yet after we have considered just what the ego's plan is, perhaps you will realize that, however preposterous it may be, you do believe in it.
2. The ego's plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. It maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be saved. Thus, the source of salvation is constantly perceived as outside of yourself. Each grievance you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe that says, if this were different, I would be saved. The change of mind necessary for salvation is thus demanded of everyone and everything except yourself.
The role assigned to your own mind in this plan, then, is simply to determine what other than itself must change if you are to be saved. According to this insane plan, any perceived source of salvation is acceptable, provided that it will not work. This ensures that the fruitless search will continue, for the illusion persists that, although this hope has always failed, there is still grounds for hope in other places and in other things. Another person will yet serve better. Another situation will yet offer success.
4. Such is the ego's plan for your salvation. Surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the ego's basic doctrine. Seek, but do not find. For what could more surely guarantee that you will not find salvation than to channelize all your efforts in searching for it where it is not?
God's plan for salvation works simply because, by following his direction, you seek for salvation where it is. But if you are to succeed, as God promises you will, you must be willing to seek there only. Otherwise, your purpose is divided, and you will attempt to follow two plans for salvation that are diametrically opposed in all ways. The result can only bring confusion, misery, and a deep sense of failure and despair.
6. How can you escape all this? Very simply. The idea for today is the answer. Only God's plan for salvation will work. There can be no real conflict about this, because there is no possible alternative to God's plan that will save you. He is the only plan that is certain in its outcome. He is the only plan that must succeed.
Let us practice this, recognizing this certainty today. And let us rejoice that there is an answer to what seems to be a conflict with no resolution possible. All things are possible to God. Salvation must be yours because of his plan, which cannot fail.
8. Begin the 2 longer practice periods today by thinking about today's idea. and realizing that it contains two parts, each making equal contribution to the whole, half and half. God's plan for your salvation will work, and other plans will not. Do not allow yourself to become depressed or angry at the second part. It is inherent in the first. And in the first is your full release from all your own insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. They have led to depression and anger, but God's plan will succeed. It will lead to release and joy.
Remember this. Let us devote the remainder of the extended practice periods to asking God to reveal his plan to us. Ask him very specifically, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? Give him full charge of the rest of the practice period, and let him tell you what needs to be done by you in his plan for your salvation. He will answer in proportion to your willingness to hear his voice. Refuse not to hear. The very fact that you are doing the exercises proves that you have some willingness to listen. This is enough to establish your claim to God's answer.
That is good news. 10. In the shorter practice periods, tell yourself often that God's plan for salvation, and only his, will work. Be alert to all temptation to hold grievances today and respond to them with this form of today's idea. Holding grievances is the opposite of God's plan for salvation, and only his plan will work. Try to remember today's idea some 6 or 7 times an hour, every 10 minutes. There could be no other better way to spend a half minute or less than to remember the source of your salvation and to see it where it is. Remember this. Holding grievances is the opposite of God's plan for salvation, and only his plan will work. So repeat that every 10 minutes. Sounds like a plan for today.
I would like to ask if anyone has a specific way that they make that happen. How do you,
I just go, hey Siri, set a reminder every 50 minutes to tell me to say what I want to say.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I do too. Does anyone else have any non-technical ways that they use to help remind themselves? Megan.
I have stuff called techie tape. It's just regular tape, but I write on it with a Sharpie, and so I stick them on the wall. I write on them, and I stick them on the wall, and then I can pull them off. So that helps.
The wall just gets covered though. Just a student.
No, I take them down.
How do you decide to take them down?
They're they don't, you just, the thing is, whatever I want to learn or repeat that day stays on the wall. Whatever I'm through with comes off. So it's sort of a moving thing, but things get moved up like to prominence and also moved around the room. So sometimes things will be by my bed. Some things will be at the door, like don't forget to say this or don't forget to do this. And sometimes things will be like at the bathroom door. Like you will definitely see that several times a day.
Write it with lipstick on the mirror.
Oh, that's how we work with the limited memory that we now have, because none of us are hardly spending time in the past. So when you're not rerunning memories into it, you're not programming it into your long-term memory. So that is what happens. So like, I know I have the same issue. So I got to put things in sight, and I'm pretty good with it. And I take pictures of what I want to remember.
It gets more intense as you get older too. Andrew.
Yeah, right. I've got that to work that I'm dealing with. On top of me stopping the memory period, it's like I'm not going to barely remember anything. I'll just trust that the Most High is remembering for me, and God, and how He does. It's amazing.
Right. Well, let's hear what Andrew has to say.
Okay, I gave up trying, really. I used to use an hourly chime on my wristwatch, but now when I remember, and when I don't remember, I just forgive myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if there's anyone that has done it perfectly. I'm curious if anyone, in the world has ever done it perfectly, because that's saying a lot.
Done what perfectly, Sharon?
Huh?
Done what perfectly?
Done each daily lesson exactly like it's,
Oh,
for 365 days. Anyway, me.
I have not done it perfectly, but this is my second year doing the whole course. But some part of me, when you asked that, said, "Oh God, I feel sorry for that person," because I realize when I get so focused on doing exactly as the course says, I forget that I'm actually trying to work the course, not have it drive me insane. So like some part of me just thought, "Oh wow, I don't want to be perfect. I want to get to the meat of pulling in the course and having it take over versus having some perfect." Anyway, thanks.
I agree. I'm just open for all of it. Maria.
I must respectfully disagree with Megan. I think that is the world that drives me crazy, not the Course in Miracles. And 1 year, I have done exactly as I was told. 5 minutes every hour, 7 times each hour, half an hour, whatever I was asked, I did it. And I was happy. And so it is the ego that drives me crazy, not being aware of God's presence.
Yeah. I'm impressed, Maria. That's really saying something. I can only.
But it was just once, 1 year I've done that in 20 so years.
Well, I don't care. That's still saying a lot. This is year number 4 for me of doing the daily work, the workbooks, and I haven't come anywhere near close to doing it like I want to do it, but
Yeah.
I'm still doing it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
But my life is insane. I really need the Course in Miracles.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. Me too. Johanna.
What this discussion makes me think of is the important question that the Course always asks, that we ask ourselves: what is it for?
Yeah.
What is the 10-minute observance or 30-minute observance? What is it for? And the goal it tries to help us achieve is to internalize the teachings.
Right.
And none of us are the same. Some people are in stages that a close adherence to the instructions is really helpful, and they will feel it, and they will feel inspired to do it, and it makes them happy, like Maria was saying. And there's this person on Facebook who responds to the videos in the group, and he's saying that he has really benefited by adhering closely to the instructions. For me, I know that it would just drive me mad. It would just be a routine, and it would just take me away from internalizing the teachings of the Course. So I suppose the challenge or the opportunity for all of us is to read these instructions and then listen to the inner guidance inside that will tell you exactly what you need to do, and that will override any written instruction. At least that's the way I see it.
I agree. Or else why would he have said, forget this book,
Yeah.
Well, that's true. And at the end of the workbook, there's this, I think in the epilogue, it says it's not up to you. If you've done the workbook once, it's not up to you and the Holy Spirit. I've done the workbook, I think, like 20 times maybe. And so I suppose I take that to heart. And I don't feel bad if I forget. You know, I'm committed to internalizing the teachings. And for me, that's enough.
Me too.
And it doesn't mean that I disapprove of following it to the letter. But, you know, I think it's inner guidance. And I understand too that can be a pitfall, because the ego will jump in and say, oh, you don't have to do it. You know, you're good enough. You don't have to do it. So it takes, I don't know.
That's one of its obvious ones. When it says that's like, oh yeah, right. But anyway, Peter.
Yeah, I was gonna, Johanna said it perfectly what I was thinking. So I appreciate that. And I would also add that, you know, it's my willingness to forgive myself for not doing it perfectly. That's the most important part of the process for me.
Yeah.
But I use anything as a hammer to beat myself up, including not doing the workbook lessons exactly the way they're laid out. I'm not doing the course. So even if I did follow the course and I beat myself up in some way, I wouldn't be doing the course, you know, if I followed the letter. But what I really want to do is I want to go back to this lesson and look at paragraph 2. The ego's plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. It maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, I would be saved. And each grievance you hold is a declaration, an assertion in which you believe that says, if this were different, I would be saved. So I just want to call out myself that even after reading this course for almost 30 years, I still have these moments where I'm convinced, totally and absolutely convinced, that if they were different, I would feel better. My life would be, I would be okay. My life would be improved or whatever. And so that's just the insanity of it. And it makes perfect sense to the ego, because I was fine until you started doing what you were just doing. So if you stop doing it, then I'll be fine again. You know, that's the rationale of the ego, but that's a complete abdication of any responsibility for how I feel.
Yeah.
Any responsibility for my thought process, any responsibility for how I am interacting with a world that's not even there. They're not even there, and I'm upset for them for not acting the way I want them to act, when the course says they're actually acting the way I want them to act.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Peter. Ardith.
Yeah, well, first of all, I agree with everything everybody said in some way or other. I find, I'll go back to the first paragraph just for a second. I find that I'm in constant dialogue with the Holy Spirit all day. He must be pretty upset with me, constantly at him all the time. But it seems like that's the way it is. Maybe it's because I live by myself, and rather than thinking that I'm talking to the ego, I direct it to the Holy Spirit, and I do get not specific answers exactly, but I get definitely feelings, and especially when I'm going to have to make a phone call to somebody, I make sure that I check in, and I just trust that what I'm going to say is what I'm meant to say. And it has pretty much worked out. Sometimes I don't listen, but most of the time I do. And yeah, and as far as hearing from passed on relatives, my mother had a very specific way of addressing me. She was a wonderful woman, very kind, very gentle, very loving, but she was, when she wanted me, she'd say, Ardith, Ardith, like twice. And I knew I had to step 2. And so when I hear that in my head, and I do, and something always correlates to that talking to me that way. So it gets my attention for sure. And what was this? I already forgot what the second part was about. Somebody filled me in, Peter or somebody who. I don't have it up on my screen, so what did you say the second part? I had something I wanted to say to that.
That second part.
Number 2, he read off the paragraph number. Oh, I see. Ego's plan for salvation centers around holding. Oh, grievances. Ah, yes. Well, somebody acted differently. Okay. I don't know. Maybe I'm a strange bug, but I really don't feel as though I act most of the time. I'd say 80% of the time. I don't really say if somebody acted differently. I just usually I blame myself, but now with the course I forgive myself, and that's the difference. Because before I would blame and feel crappy and have no way out of it. But the course has given us that out, and I think that if we just listen to the inner guide, I think that's the basic thing. But yeah, that's it.
I agree. Thank you, Ardith.
Thank you.
Bill.
I wanted to go to check on, I just wanted a little clarification what this part in number 2, was it 2?
Which part?
It was where it says ourselves, and I was wondering who ourselves were. And I don't know if it's in this part or if it's in 4. I think it's in 3.
Well, wouldn't you say that anytime it uses the term ourselves, isn't that always speaking as about the sonship, us all united individually as one?
I would think so.
I always think, well, there really is only one of us, and we're always kind of floating between those two levels. Yeah, I'm not sure what you were looking at, Bill.
It's in number 3 at the beginning. The role assigned to your own. As soon as you got off full screen, I could see my notes. I had a hard time, and then I figured out how to get off full screen. So the role assigned to your own mind in this plan then is simply to determine what, other than itself, must change. Like other than itself, that's what I'm trying to figure out what that itself was we're talking about. That's where I'm kind of lost in this. Other than itself, what is other than itself? I don't understand that part.
Our own mind.
Our own mind. Okay, the role assigned is assigned to your own mind in this plan. Then is simply to determine what. Okay. Oh, I see. So what our own mind thinks, other than itself, should change if we are to be saved. It's getting to go and think. What? Okay, I think I got it. Now I do. Thank you.
Okay. Megan. Thank you, Bill.
I think I have a little tag on what Bill was saying, which was that this time around going through the course, I'm doing the workbooks, but I'm also going through the text. So I read I'm sort of following the workbook, but through the text and trying to really understand the text part of it. I realized that the big thing for me is the choice between heaven or hell, God or ego. And so what's been helping me is to find all the things where God says, this is your function. Your function is happiness. Your function is joy. Your function is forgiveness. And so every time I'm confused at all, I remember my function, and then I remember my connection to God, that I can always ask for help. So in this, I realize that I may not be going directly as the course says to follow these things, but I am aware that all these things are sort of deeply getting rooted in me, that my salvation is from me, God is with me, I am with God, and all those things are the point, as Sharon was saying, or Johanna, that what is the point of your study? And my point is to be happy and to enjoy what I see, and to change my mind about what I see, and to change my feelings about my mind and my feelings about assigning things to ideas or people or statements. And so I think that I've been having fights with myself every now and then. Somebody will post something on Facebook and I'll really want to respond, and it's my intellect and ego that wants to respond. And then the Course tells me, oh, let it go. Just let it go. And so I think those are the things that are really, for me, the point, which is to no longer be attracted by these ego traps, these ego laden things where you feel this great desire because it was so fulfilling in your past, your ego is loving it, and now I just first it's to let it go, and then it's to notice, oh, those things don't even affect me anymore. There's some that are still deeply rooted that hook me, and some there's tons more now that I just go, wow, I just don't have an opinion, because I part of me says I don't care. I do care, but I can't change another person's mind. I can only save myself. And in doing so, then there's the salvation of the world, and that's the Course.
Yeah. It's like, just be an observer.
Megan, I just wanted to touch on that just a little bit, because I do realize and completely understand that the Spirit talks through people through radio, internet, everything, everywhere. Okay, he uses us, and however he does it. So if you feel spontaneous to reply to something in a online, then just simply check, is it love-based? If it is, boom, spontaneous. Let the Spirit go through you. And then I think that it's not a problem. We don't want to cut it all off, because he has a divine design that's reaching everybody through everything all at once. So, I'm not going to say cut off the internet. No, it's part of it.
Oh, no. Me neither.
And responding to it. Like, we want to see it, responded to it. As long as we got ourselves clicking, working proper, responding from a love-based position every time, then boom, then we go ahead, a spontaneous response, spontaneous. You're working for the Most High, one love. Yeah.
No, but like, Bill, I agree with you. I'm not turning off the internet. I'm turning off my ego's attachment to wanting to respond.
Yes.
It's not necessarily love-based. It's that it's a call. I have to go, like Jesus said, can I heal this person, God? Because I don't know. Is it within your thing? So when I want to respond, I'll have lots of things I want to say, and then I'll have written a lot of stuff. I'll even take it into a notepad, start writing it. And then I'll say, wait a second, it's still love-based. It's all from love. I want to be truly helpful, but is it helpful to them? And that's when I ask for guidance. And so that's when I say, no, it's not helpful. It's not helpful. I've spent a lot of time doing this. I could spend my time better. I could choose more wisely for myself. And also in the way that I'm approaching it, like sometimes I've just scrapped like tons of stuff I've written, not said anything. Sometimes I've just written like, 3 words. And because I checked after the ego took over, and I checked and I said, exactly what am I trying to say, and what is the most helpful and the least, the thing that I can say that is least able to hook anybody else, because it's about me, not about them. If I speak from me, if I say, well, I feel when I do this, this happens, I am not saying anything about the other person. I'm doing in a loving way, sharing my experience. And in that way, they can either take it or leave it. But I'm not saying, by the way, you should do this because I figured this out all for you. I know everything.
Yeah, and I think it's always important for us to always remember that we have no idea what's going on with that person. We may think we know because of how they're acting or whatever, but we don't know anything. Ardith.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I go by the wherever it says in the Course, I don't know. We can't fix anything. And every time I try to engaging in conversation, I try to remember that I can't fix this. And if I remember that, then I'm more inclined to just kind of do pretty much what Megan was saying. Try to figure out if I can be truly helpful. And if I can't, then I just clam up. I just leave it. And it seems to work. It's pretty straightforward tool. Just can't fix it. Don't try. Just be loving. That's the thing.
And see the face of Christ in everyone that's standing in front of you.
Yeah.
definitely my goal. Ah, Maggie.
Yeah, I just was still thinking about, I liked that exchange between Bill and Megan. Like, thank you both, because I was just listening to you too. And I think I really resonate with what both of you said. I think you're both speaking from your experience and your practice. And I could really hear like your hearts in both of them. And it was interesting though. Like, I just wanted to say to Bill, what Bill said there about how I think there is like an ability to check in and kind of notice the like emotional tone or the charge or you know, I'm kind of failing with words, I think here, but it's not like an ego assessment of this is a loving thing to say and this is going to fix the problem. It's not an ego assessment of this is a loving thing to say to this particular person because I know X, Y, and Z about them and I know how they'll react and all of that. Like Sharon's point just strikes me for that, right? We really don't know how to do that. We can't do that. But I do know in my own practice and in my own experience, I do very much take things in and feeling check them in order to figure out if it's guidance or not. And there is different literal physical sensations and emotional experience, I think, that go hand in hand with being in tune with your inner guidance versus following ego temptation. And so I did want to just share that. I think I heard both of you, like I said, and I heard truth from both of you, but I liked that point, and I just thought I would share that from my experience as well.
Thanks, Maggie. What is instigating the response is the word that comes to my mind, what we're trying to figure out. Is it love-based or what? What is instigating what instigated me to respond to this person? So before I start typing, because first I'll get the response, instigation to respond. I go to respond, and before I start typing, I can stop right there and go, was that instigation love-based? And if I had to stop and think, you know, whatever, I can stop and think. Because sometimes it wasn't even love-based. Something else moved me to make the response. And then because I stopped when I'm got me making the response already, it will tell me since I stopped to ask what the true message is of the love-based. And it probably may have been nothing of what I was going to respond to. It could change right there. But just want to help us understand that there is a divine force that is freeing the mind of mankind all around us, working through us. And so we want to try to allow that force to work without restriction. And right now, the only restriction that we finally have is it love-based or not? And then pretty soon we'll just be clicking in a love-based. And we know that we were. And if we wondered what we did, well, we knew we did it love-based, okay? That's where we're trying to get to be. And then the engine is going.
Yep. Yeah. Megan.
I think, again, with Bill, that along the same lines, that even when I do write things, once I hit send, I immediately realized that that's what was intended.
Okay, good.
Because it might come from a bad place, a good place, a love place, or whatever place. But once I've hit send, that was preordained because it is sent. And so then I'm sometimes I might recriminate myself or think about it. And then I contact spirit again, and spirit says, no, it is done. Therefore, it's in the world, and whatever becomes of it, that's what it was made for.
Mm-hmm. So do you ever get tempted to like just get it out and hit send, and then you don't have to think about it anymore? That's a temptation too. And then that other thing that is giving us our divine suffering, if you will, which is the continuous chaos and separation and pain, is working. Could be. You got to be careful, you know, because as soon as but it is true. When I hit that send, that's done. It's in the past. It was perfect. Exactly. And if it wasn't, it can be changed to exactly how perfection wants it to be changed. And whoever views it, if it needs to, it totally has that ability to just make us infallible. We cannot fail and screw up in this coming of the mind, right? We can't. It's cool. It's cool to know that finally. Hey, gee, dear.
Thank you guys for all that exchange. I appreciate that. So Johanna, can we go back to the lesson? And so we looked a lot at paragraph 2 and then part of paragraph 3. Does anyone have anything they want to add to these first 3 paragraphs, or not add to, but talk about? Does it bring up anything that we should be discussing or that we want to be discussing? Okay, so let's go to paragraph 4. Such is the ego's plan for your salvation. Surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the ego's basic doctrine: seek but do not find. For what could more surely guarantee that you will not find salvation than to channelize all your efforts into searching for it where it is not? That's all pretty clear to me. Megan? Oh, your hand was still up. Okay, yeah, you're muted.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say was that the biggest thing that I get from all of it is that only with my willingness to join with God is myself, and accept that I am with God, is my salvation assured. Because in my mind is the choice. In my mind is where salvation rests.
Yeah. Well, we're getting close. We have 3 more minutes. Does anyone have anything that they want to talk about in today's lesson? So do you think, Johanna, the next time? Oh, okay, Andrew.
Yeah, just briefly, I don't really get much internal inspiration through voice or anything. I get feelings, but the way I spend my day and try to apply the course is just try to do no harm when I'm dealing with anyone. Do no harm. That's how I go through the day, and that works for me.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Maggie.
Yeah, just looking at this 4th paragraph that you just read, Sharon, I just had this feeling of connecting it to what that communication that was just happening with Megan and Bill, and then I had joined in sentence 2 here. It says, surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the ego's basic doctrine: seek but do not find. And it just was hearing that, seeing that while you were reading it and thinking about how it's the opposite, right, of what Bill was just saying. It's like Spirit's plan, God's plan is you will find it no matter what. Like, you can't mess this up. You cannot mess this up. But the ego's doctrine is, well, you're going to mess it up no matter what. You're going to keep seeking, and I'm not going to have you find that. So to that point that Bill made kind of at the end of that communication there, no matter what we do, there's a way for it to be used for good. There's a way for it to be used for God's plan. So there's really such comfort and reassurance, I think, in that.
I agree. Well, we're just about to the end, and I want to read something as we close off our time together here today. And this is from the Choose Once Again booklet that I read from last Tuesday. And this says, myself is holy beyond all the thoughts of holiness of which I now conceive. Its shimmering and perfect purity is far more brilliant than is any light that I have ever looked upon. Its love is limitless, with an intensity that holds all things within it in the calm of quiet certainty. Its strength comes not from burning impulses which move the world, but from the boundless love of God Himself. How far beyond this world myself must be, and yet how near to me and close to God. And that's workbook lesson 252.